This video is by Straight Goods News, SGNews.ca.
We've just concluded a very successful roundtable that is part of the policy development process that I've been talking about for months, engaging with Canadians, listening to them, and building on what's actually happening across the country. And what has become clear is that we cannot build a strong economy, we cannot have a thriving middle class if students, if young people aren't given a solid base from which to start their job experiences. And the line between education and work experience has caused a sort of a gray zone over the past years, where there are an increasing number of unpaid internships that are worrisome in that it's not being a clear path towards meaningful employment or even employment experience. We've had a number of good discussions on this. We will continue to reach out across the country over the coming months to start talking to the kinds of things. The major disconnect that young people are facing is one of knowledge in many cases. When they start their degrees, they don't necessarily know what paths are going to be available to them once they finish their degrees. And the issues of skilled trades and technical and vocational education is one where there are extremely high placement rates for machinists, for electricians, but there are not enough people taking those paths. And there needs to be a level of both information out there that these paths are available, along with a level of support that starts a lot earlier than just the post-secondary level towards technical trainings and the capacity to understand the opportunities for flexibility. Many of our older Canadians are still wanting to work, still needing to work in many cases, but would be interested in working less hours or less days and can take on a mentorship role, sharing their experience and their capacity with young people. I think we can do some work around that. But there is going to be a need for jobs for a wide range of people on the young end and on the elder end of the spectrum.
But is there a case where older people are holding the jobs longer and therefore taking them away from younger people coming in?
There are stories around that. I've seen a number of studies that actually do not demonstrate that is in fact the case. There are more jobs out there. The big problem is a mismatch of skills and capacity to fulfill those jobs, rather than jobs that are being held on longer by an aging population. I'd hate to see it be seen as an either seniors or youth. We're going to need the strong involvement of all sectors of society if we're going to create a strong middle class and a strong future for this country.
Another question on the census. It shows that retail is the #1 employment sector, and of course that used to be manufacturing. Can you comment on what that says about where our economy is at and whether the government should step in to change that?
Well, you referred to it as a census. It's a national household survey.
Yes, good point.
They canceled the long-form census, which means that we have less reliable data than we had ever before. And that's one of the issues that came out today, that we do not have as much information on what's actually happening on the ground to Canadians as we did before, and that's of concern. But yes, the emphasis on retail jobs is of concern, because whether it's manufacturing or whether it's skilled jobs or knowledge industry jobs, we have a need to move beyond entry-level retail jobs. They have an important role to play in our society as well, but that shouldn't be the largest sector of our society, and that indicates that there is something that a government needs to address.
What should the government be doing to change it?
I think the kinds of conversations we had today, which is bringing together stakeholders, educational institutions, with private sector, with student groups, to talk about the paths, the needs for young people to be able to be given opportunities to learn, to train, to grow, and to fulfill the needs of our workforce and of our workplace. That means making sure that we have stronger regulations and oversight over internships, to make sure that they are actually learning experiences and not replacement of paid labor, for example, as is happening all too often these days. But we also need to make sure that the message is getting out there of the industries that need skilled workers, and the pathway through trade schools and vocational schools, particularly for the people who don't have access to unpaid internships because they need to make money to live. We're talking about our lower income levels, or vulnerable communities like Aboriginal communities. We have to make sure that we are giving people the opportunity to develop the skills to contribute to their fullest potential. And right now, we haven't seen that kind of leadership for the federal government, which is why I've talked throughout my leadership race and continue now about the need for national leadership on education, not taking away from any of the areas of jurisdiction of the provinces, but working with the provinces and working with educational institutions to create a framework where we are going to empower young Canadians to be strong contributors to the economy. That's how you build a strong paid internship. Well, there are already fairly stringent rules across the country, mostly provincial, on internships that point out you cannot have an unpaid internship unless it's directly associated with a university or a college and supervised. I mean, there are rules that unfortunately aren't enforced nearly enough these days, and there's actually a vacuum for the 6% or so of people who work in federally regulated industries where there are no regulations around the federal side. But when you have, as we heard today, examples of housekeeping interns working in hotels, you see that there is a level of a real problem when people are facing the you can't get a job without getting experience, you can't get experience without getting a job. They're going for these unpaid internships that unfortunately are not either helping individuals or our economy or the industry in investing in the kind of future that we need for people. So yes, I think we need to look at stronger oversight and enforcing the regulations that exist. But I think that internships will continue to be an important way to acquire experience. They just have to be framed and supervised. We still have a big disconnect between the youth unemployment rate and the regular unemployment rate. They've always been very closely correlated. Right now we're seeing the youth unemployment rate stay high despite a decrease in the general unemployment rate. And that is really concerning, particularly when we look at shifting demographics. We have to make sure that our young people are given opportunities to work in their fields and to succeed. Now, what we're seeing is, unfortunately, even though many people have education, there is a problem in actually putting that education to successful work, and that's what we're highlighting today, and that's why people who are highly educated are taking too often unpaid internships where they end up on the borderline of being exploited by companies instead of actually gaining the kind of essential work experience that's going to lead them into